In Missoula, there's an old saying: if someone disappears in the Bitterroot Mountains, either they meant to, or something chose them. Brandon and Mireille Watkins weren't the type to run away. He'd served in Kandahar, came back with a spine full of scars, and a habit of glancing over his shoulder every time he entered a diner. She was an ER nurse, sharp, quiet, and with a gaze that could calm patients without a sedative. They didn't have kids, just Jet, a husky smarter than most people I know. That October, they went hunting to mark their anniversary, a ritual 6 years strong. Their last message came from a gas station 43 miles out where they bought ammo, water, and a bag of dog food. After that, nothing. No calls, no signals, no signs of a wreck, no blood, no gunfire. Just silence stretched over 2 full years. Then, one early autumn morning, in that kind of damp cold that never quite lifts, Jet came back. He scratched at Caroline's door, Brandon's mother. Skin and bones, eyes red, limping on one leg. Around his neck, a bent silver tag they thought had been lost long ago. No one understood how he'd survived. No one knew where he'd come from. But the most terrifying part wasn't that he came back. It was that he came back alone. On the 4th day after Brandon and Mireille Watkins failed to return, Caroline, Brandon's mother, walked into the Missoula police station to file a missing persons report. She brought with her a small calendar marked with the day they left, a gas receipt, and a photo of Jet, taken at the forest's edge with them. The officer on duty that day was Lieutenant Bill Parsons, a man who had once served alongside Brandon in the National Guard. He said, maybe they just changed campsites and forgot to check in. But Caroline knew her son didn't work like that. Brandon always left a precise itinerary, checked in on time, and stored backup batteries in their mailbox for emergencies. This time, nothing. Search teams were deployed the following morning, starting near Trapper Lake, then eastward into the Bitterroot Range. No tent, no truck, no fire pit. It was as if they'd never been there. One officer found a single spent .308 casing beneath a pine tree, the kind Brandon typically used. But there were no footprints, no second shell, and most oddly, the bullet itself was recovered intact, lying over 8 meters from the casing. Someone had extracted the bullet from whatever it hit, and deliberately discarded the shell. By day 7, the search expanded south toward Canyon Creek. A helicopter spotted something reflecting beneath the canopy, a broken side mirror matching Brandon's truck model. But when they reached the location, there was no truck, no remains, just the mirror, clean and oddly unweathered, as if someone had placed it there to mislead. In the end-of-day report, Lieutenant Parsons wrote, "No definitive signs of foul play. No indicators of voluntary disappearance. This appears to be an unexplained disruption of travel." But Caroline wasn't buying it. She scrawled a note on Brandon's last bank statement. If my son ran away, why hasn't anyone used his card? If he was attacked, why didn't anyone scream? And that very night, just as everyone started to believe they might never find anything more, a boy from the northern neighborhood called in to say a dog was scratching at his front door. He stood at the door of a boy named Lucas in the North Reserve neighborhood of Missoula. Head lowered, body caked in mud, left hind leg dragging, and eyes not like those of a stray. Jet wasn't scared. He stood still, as if waiting to be recognized. Lucas said he didn't bark, didn't growl, just nudged the door with his forehead 3 times. Caroline was called to the scene. The moment she stepped out of her car, Jet lifted his head and began to whimper, a low, trembling sound like a person trying to breathe through tears. He slowly approached her, then lay flat on the ground, pressing his head against her shoe. Caroline knelt down and wept. The vet examined Jet that night. He had lost nearly 40% of his body weight. There was a deep cut on his hind leg that had been crudely wrapped in dirty cloth, not medical gauze, but rough fabric, like from an old burlap sack. The fur around his neck had been shaved, suggesting someone had once attached something there. A small patch on his right ear had a stitched wound done by hand, hastily, using non-sterile tow thread. And the final discovery, In his stomach, visible on X-ray, was a small rectangular plastic object, sharp-edged, wrapped in organic matter. When the vet surgically removed it, it turned out to be a microSD card, encased in a layer of beeswax and dried bloody gauze. No one knew who had done it, but clearly someone had implanted the card inside Jet as the only way to smuggle out information past surveillance. The police wanted to keep Jet for further testing. Caroline refused. If he's smart enough to come home, he deserves to stay home. She brought him back, placed him on Brandon's old cushion, and said something to him that no one else heard. The next morning, Jet stood on his own, walked to the corner of the house where Brandon used to keep his guns, and scratched the wall 3 times. Beneath the chipped paint was a scrawled message in faded black ink. "Don't trust the uniforms. They listen at night." The microSD card was delivered to the Montana State Digital Forensics Unit 3 days after Jet's return. At first, the data was unreadable. The beeswax and dried blood had partially corroded the contact points, but after 2 hours of manual restoration, they recovered a single folder. The folder's name, W27 Odd Not Dead Yet. Inside was only one video file, and .mp4 38 MB in size. No timestamp, no GPS metadata. But when it played, the entire room fell silent. The screen showed darkness, flickering light, shaky movement. After a few seconds of stabilization, a face appeared Brandon's. Emaciated, hollow-cheeked, cracked lips, bloodshot eyes but alive. His voice was hoarse, barely more than breath. "If you're seeing this, my name is Brandon Watkins. I was taken on October 12, 1995. I'm being held somewhere in the northern mountains. I don't know the exact location. No windows, soundproofed walls. I hear a generator outside. They wear no badges. They don't give names, but they know everything about me." He looked directly into the camera. "They killed Mireille. I heard it. Not an accident, not wildlife. They did it to shut me up." He swallowed hard. His breathing quickened. His left hand trembled. "I think one of them is law enforcement. I saw a small emblem on his boots look like an old Rapid Response Unit logo. Worn, faded, like they've done this before." Brandon looked down. A faint metallic clinking echoed like something scraping on concrete. He pulled at his shirt collar, revealing the letters RU216 etched into the fabric, possibly a cell ID or internal code. "Jet's alive. I did what I had to. He'll make it back. Let him lead the way." He paused for a long moment, then stared straight into the lens, his eyes no longer fearful, just hollow. "If I die, let someone die with me. Don't bury me in silence." The video ended. Black screen. No music. No credits. No further message. That night, the forensic lab experienced 3 unexpected power outages. The server froze for 7 minutes without explanation. The next morning, the video was missing from the official backup, leaving only the USB copy Caroline had pulled before handing it over. She reinserted it into her laptop. The video still played. But this time, at the very end, after 3 seconds of black screen, a line appeared that hadn't been there before. "Watch the one holding this USB. If you're not being watched, you're already replaced." 3 days after the memory card was decoded, Caroline woke up at 4 a.m. to a faint scratching at the back door. Jet was standing there silent, eyes wide, as if he'd just seen something he shouldn't have. He turned toward the forest, then looked back at her, clearly asking to be followed. Caroline first called Lieutenant Parsons. He refused. Said the unit was under public scrutiny and all operations now required approval. But 2 hours later, a young female officer named Hannah Coyle, who had once studied under Mireille in an EMT program, volunteered to go with Caroline and Jet. Jet led them deep into the southern edge of the Bitterroot Range, where the terrain was treacherous and often skipped during official searches due to lack of GPS coverage. They hiked nearly 4 hours before reaching a moss-covered path not on any official map. Hannah cross-checked archived topography from 1982 and discovered the area had once been used by the military as a temporary operations site, later decommissioned. Barbed wire blocked the path, but Jet squeezed through and stopped in front of a rusted metal sign flipped upside down. They lifted it. The faded lettering read, RU2, Tactical Holding Facility, decommissioned, 1990. Both Hannah and Caroline stared at each other. RU2. The same prefix Brandon had etched on his collar, RU216. Behind the sign was a sunken clearing, overgrown with brush. Jet ran straight to a rectangular patch of dirt, stopped, and began to dig. No commands, no name called. He dug until his paws bled, refusing to stop. After 20 minutes, Hannah knelt down to help. The final layer of soil gave way, revealing a concrete hatch with an iron handle and 2 broken locks. Local police were called in. But by the time they arrived, Jet had disappeared. They searched within a 300-meter radius. No paw prints, no barking. Hannah wrote in her report, "The dog didn't run. He completed his mission." The hatch was opened the following morning. The air inside reeked of damp wood, rusted iron, and something else, ammonia and rotting meat. A rickety wooden staircase descended about 10 feet, leading to a narrow, dark corridor. The first thing they saw on the wall, written in charcoal, was, 216, can't sleep. Don't let it know your name. The hallway beneath the bunker was less than 10 meters long, yet no one from the breach team wanted to be the first to enter. Flashlights swept across mold-stained walls. The charcoal markings were fresh, as if someone had written them just days ago. Each line was shaky, forceful, fragmented. Keep your ears dry. It listens through water. They don't need light, but fear the hiss. Third wall has a hole. Don't look through it. The third wall did, in fact, have a narrow slit eye level. Hannah was the only one who looked. Later, in her internal report, she claimed she saw nothing but felt like someone was breathing in sync with her from the other side. At the end of the corridor was a circular concrete well, about 1.5 meters wide, so deep that flashlights couldn't reach the bottom. No ladder. No cover. The inner walls were streaked with old blood, not sprayed but dragged downward. Sitting on the edge of the well was a broken Maglite flashlight, the exact model Brandon once carried. Caroline didn't go into the bunker, but she stood at the top of the stairs. She later said the stench from the well didn't smell like rot or death, but something else, like burnt static in cold air. Hannah attempted to radio command. No signal. Not static full connection, green light, but no response. When the team exited the bunker and returned to their vehicles, their phones pinged with missed calls, all showing a single number, 216, 216, 206 sus. That night, one member of the entry team tech officer, Daniel Shore, drove out of Missoula alone. He left a note on his desk. We didn't find the well. It wanted to be seen. The next morning, Hannah reviewed footage from her body cam. One clip had activated automatically at 6:41 a.m., a time she was sure she'd already left the bunker. In it, she stood at the edge of the well, completely still. For 31 seconds, she stared into the abyss motionless while Brandon's voice whispered faintly from somewhere behind the lens. I know they're still there, but I'm not sure they're people anymore. 2 days after leaving RU2, Hannah couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the well. Not visually, but sonically. Deep, wet breathing behind her neck, like the memory wasn't in her mind, but floating somewhere in the air around her. Tuesday morning, she visited the records room at the Missoula Police Department where old case files were still stored in semi-manual archives. She pretended to be reviewing the missing persons file for Mireille Watkins. But when she reached the W section, she found a file clipped with an unusual label. Classified Non-Public Registry. Code S5RU. Inside was a typed list. Each line contained a name, a disappearance date, and a code to it. There were 19 names. The timeline stretched from 1985 to 1995. Some names were blacked out. A few had notes like, "No next of kin requested inquiry." But one entry remained intact. Mireille Watkins. 10/12/1995. Assigned RU200 key. Beside it, in a small column of notes, Status: incompatible with echo test. Processed. Hannah turned to the next page a crude, hand-drawn map of RU2. The bunker, corridor, and well were labeled with technical codes. Cell 3B containment shaft. An arrow extended from the shaft to a handwritten line in red ink. Only admit entities capable of navigating without light. No signature. No official stamp. But in the lower corner was a faded logo from the Domestic Response Force Division 7, a unit supposedly dissolved in 1991. Hannah didn't take the file. She snapped photos on her phone, but when she checked them in her car, the images were auto-encrypted. White screen. File names replaced by unreadable code. In the corner flashed a symbol she didn't recognize, RU-206-EEK. Access denied. She removed her memory card and inserted it into her private laptop. One file appeared, a PDF, which auto-launched, "You have seen. You no longer get to choose." 4 days after viewing the strange file, Hannah took a leave of absence. She cut off contact with the department, locked her phone, and retreated to her parents' cabin near Lolo Hot Springs. She brought only one thing with her, the corrupted memory card. Every device said it was unreadable, but she kept it anyway. Caroline made an unexpected visit. She said Jet had returned to her house at 3 a.m., soaking wet as if he had swum across a river. No visible injuries, but something in his eyes unsettled her. "It's still Jet," she said, "but something's off." Hannah agreed to keep Jet for a few days. That first night, as Hannah stepped out of the bathroom, she found Jet standing motionless in front of the hallway mirror. The lights were off, only moonlight filtered through the window. Jet just stood there, staring directly at his own reflection. No barking, no movement. Hannah approached, and she noticed something she would never write in any report. Jet's reflection didn't blink. The real Jet did subtle eye twitches, shallow breaths, muscle tremors, but the mirrored image remained still like a photograph pasted behind the glass. She tried turning Jet's head away. He resisted. She gently pulled, and he strained to keep his gaze locked on the mirror. Only when she switched off the lights did he lie down. The next morning, she ran a test. She placed Jet before several different mirrors under varying light, and each time, the reflection didn't match. When Jet turned his head, the image continued to stare forward. In one mirror, the reflection was missing the red collar Jet clearly wore in real life. She recorded a 12-minute video on her phone, then downloaded it to her laptop. In the footage, there was one frame, one exact moment where both Jet and his reflection turned to look at the camera simultaneously. Hannah paused the video on that frame, zoomed in. In the mirrored Jet's eyes, something was standing behind her, but in the actual footage, no one was there. By the third night, Hannah had stopped sleeping, not because she wanted to stay awake, but because her body no longer trusted sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw herself standing in RU2's bunker, not moving, not thinking, just listening. A low, damp frequency, like someone breathing. But not from lungs from stone. She set alarms every 20 minutes, but each time they rang, she wasn't in bed, she was in the hallway, the kitchen, once even the shed out back with Jet sitting beside her, staring directly at her face like he was checking. Sleepwalking? Maybe. But all doors were locked from the inside. No footprints, no signs of struggle. One afternoon, while checking her phone for emails, she found a string of photos she hadn't taken pictures of the well. One was a close-up of the rim with a freshly carved message. RU2 doesn't just hold things, it sends them back. She tried Googling, attempted to log into the department server via VPN. Every route triggered a security failure. Strangest of all, her browser kept redirecting to a single address. The page was a black screen with blinking white text. You haven't left, only your consciousness moved first. Jet no longer slept beside her. He stayed in the living room or outside the bedroom. But every morning, when she opened the door, Jet was already lying across the threshold, back to her door, facing outward. as if guarding not against something coming in, but something that might try to walk out of her room. Hannah started losing time. One afternoon she poured coffee, looked up, and it was night. Another time she found herself writing, only to realize a line had appeared in handwriting not her own. "Don't wake it. It's learning how to pretend to be you." She no longer heard Jet bark. Not because he didn't, but because she couldn't tell which sounds were real. Every time she heard something, she had to turn and check. Sometimes the barking came from behind, yet Jet was looking straight at her, mouth closed. On the 8th night, she looked in the bathroom mirror at 2 a.m., and her reflection's gaze didn't match hers. Just like Jet. The last thing she remembered was a faint hiss, not a sound, but a sensation like her nerves scraping against each other. When she woke up, her face was pressed against the mirror. In her hand was the memory card she thought she'd lost. At dawn, on the 9th day, Jet barked for the first time in nearly a week. One sharp, singular sound, but it pierced Hannah's ears like a signal. He stood by the front door, staring toward the trail. No leash, no command. He just walked, and Hannah followed. She brought a flashlight, a folding knife, and the memory card. She didn't know why, but she understood. What she held was no longer evidence, it was something that needed to be returned. They trekked through the forest for 3 hours. When they reached the old RU2 site, the barbed wire fence was gone. Not trampled, not cut, just gone, as if the place had withdrawn itself. Jet stopped at the hatch. It was still the old rusted door with the iron handle, but this time it was already ajar, as if waiting. Hannah entered alone. She wasn't afraid exactly, but she wasn't calm either. It felt as though her body was following a script written into her bones, something guiding her, something that remembered the way. The corridor was unchanged. The charcoal writing on the walls remained, but now fresh lines had been scrawled over them. Not everything that leaves this place deserves to keep living. She reached the edge of the well. Nothing had moved until she looked down and saw eyes staring back from the darkness. Not clearly human, but eyes, nonetheless, still, unblinking. Hannah pulled out the memory card, placed it on the rim of the well, and stepped back 3 paces. No wind, no sound. And yet, the card slowly slid forward, as if pulled. Then, 5 seconds of perfect silence. The well breathed. A cold rush of air surged upward, not wind, but the breath of something that had slept too long. Across the opposite wall, old writing began to glow faintly, as if charged with light. Brandon Watkins, protocol complete. She turned. Jet was gone. All that remained was his red collar hanging on the handle of the bunker door. 3 days later, Caroline received a parcel. No return address, no postmark. Only her name on the label, Caroline Watkins, mother of 1. Inside, Jet's red collar, a handcrafted wooden USB stick, and a sheet of paper smudged with ink. No signature. Just one line. "I'm not dead, but Brandon Watkins is no longer me." Caroline handed the USB to a friend who worked in cybersecurity. When opened, it contained a single audio file, 2 minutes and 16 seconds long background noise of slow, steady breathing, and a man's whisper. Some places are not meant to be unearthed. Some hallways only open one way. RU2 wasn't built to contain. It was a door, and everyone who's ever stood before that door brought something back with them. Caroline didn't sleep for 48 hours after hearing it. Her friend, the one who accessed the file, disappeared 2 days later. He left behind one final message on his computer. "I copied the file. Mistake. Now there are 2 of me in the mirror." No one in Missoula talks about RU2 anymore. The area has been redesignated as a forest recovery zone. Entry prohibited. But residents nearby say that every full moon, the sound of a dog barking, solitary, distant, echoes from deep within the woods. Hannah never returned. No missing person report, no remains. Only one elderly woman claimed to have seen her, walking at dawn with a pale gray dog into the forest, never to come back. That's where the story ends. No trial, no killer, just a place Are You Too, where if you go in, what comes back might still look like you, but no longer be you inside.